Well, excerpts there of that investigative piece put together by the Fourth Estate. We'll get the very latest from the Fourth Estate shortly as to this latest account that we're hearing of the Minister of Education's account being used to place that, student in a Category A school. But exactly what's the position of the Education Ministry now that these rumors are becoming rife and the investigative report is pointing to the man at the top? I want to bring in the spokesperson for the Education Ministry, Kwesi Kwarteng, who's joining us via Zoom here on The Pulse. Mr. Kwarteng, thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm sure that by now you've read the report, you've seen what it is that's making rounds online. First of all, is that a true reflection of what it is that the investigative reports suggest? Kwesi Kwarteng, if you can hear me, I'm just asking if the reports that we're putting out there is a true reflection of what it is that the committee has resolved or, identified as part of their investigative findings.
Hello?
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
Are you able to hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, can you kindly repeat?
I was just asking that by now, I'm sure that you've read the reports, the fact that everything seems to be pointing to the Education Minister's access point, a reason for which he's been indicted now, if not at least formally, but concerns arrived that he needs to put across some answers. And that's why I'm asking if the reports out there, the investigative report, accurately captures what it is that the findings are.
Yesterday, I spoke with Manasseh on the same subject matter. From the Ministry of Education, our position was not to respond to this because we feel that we've given enough information so far as the subject matter is concerned. And then we've offered a lot of explanation, but it appears, the interest is that, get a big fish, indict him, make the story look big. And maybe the investigative piece would have been seen, or the team would have been seen to have been probably doing a good work. Because, why are we here? The ministry has, in many occasions, on many points, explained the possibility of an asset being abused, coming from the schools themselves, coming from even third parties or the general public. We've never disputed that. But it will be very simplistic for anybody to indict the Minister for Education just on the basis that the general public came to him through persons. It could be journalists, it could be pastors, it could be ordinary Ghanaians, and that for that matter, some changes were made with regards to effecting a change in their wards placement. Very, very simplistic for you to conclude that because, let's say, the minister's access was used to effect a change, then for that matter, one can indict him. If there should be a conversation about indictment, I'm not sure it's a conversation for radio. It's a conversation for the courts. But for us at the Ministry of Education, this is what we are saying. We've explained and reiterated once again that yes, there is a possibility in that the ministry's resolve to also help the general public in the resolve of the schools also didn't help the general public through the protocol system. There is a possibility. How is the Minister for Education able to know that if you submitted a list to him, including person A, person B, person C, how is he able to know that you took A amount or B amount? So we are really struggling to comprehend the motive of this deliberate indictment of the minister into the whole matter. It's just like saying that a security person at Joy FM probably did something wrong. And so for that matter, maybe because it was done in the name of Joy FM, the CEO or the owner of the Joy FM should be blamed. That should not be a fair analysis to say. Again, if indeed you have been able to trace such a person based on the investigative piece, what is preventing us from handing the matter over to whoever state or relevant state institutions that will make a final determination that indeed a person or person A paid this or person B paid this? Of course, I have listened to Manasseh and his submissions, and of course, the write-up that he made. And then he attributes it to Professor Opoku-Amankwa in the third report. Let me hasten to add that, first of all, the report that we have is a draft report. It is not a final document. Even if, such claims have been made, it will be very, very simplistic for you to, based on that, to make a conclusion and say that, well, because the minister's access was used, then for that matter, the Minister for Education is supposed to be indicted. Again, on the substantive issue about Professor Opoku-Amankwa, that is a former Director General, who, based on Manasseh's report, have again made the position that, based on the back end, they were able to track or trace that the assets of whoever did it in the name of the minister's assets. I'm also struggling to get that, because and the only person or the only party who have access to the back end is only the third party, which happens to be the software developer. None of the staff of the ministry, being it the Minister for Education, the Director General of GES, or whosoever individual, have access to the back end. So it's really very difficult for anybody to suggest that based on this back end analysis, this is what he saw or that is what he saw. But granted, without even admitting that we've even moved from the document or the report being a draft report, and let's say it's even a final report, what is the big deal about this? The big deal is that at the end of the day, we've been able to identify or trace that an individual who claimed, changes were effected to his placement was done in the name of the minister's assets. Such an individual can be pulled down. We go through the chain. Who did you pay money to? Who submitted such a list? Then we probe it. But to conclude that because an effect or changes has been made, and for that matter, if it was made with the minister's assets, then it indicts the minister is very weak analogy, unsustainable. So
let's get to it then. You seem to be disputing what it is that the Fourth Estate has put out. Do you concede? You feel there are nuances to it, but let's get some clarity here from your perspective. Who operates the minister's logging access?
Granted, that is even myself. It doesn't really change anything.
No, I guess it's a specific question.
No, you see, the point is that whether or not I answer you in a way that you want, there is an issue that is in contention. The issue is whether or not, one, the access was abused. And the other issue is that, is there a possibility that the access can be abused without even the minister himself knowing? So I'm really struggling to.
Yeah, I'm equally granting you that, but I'm just curious to know, how is the minister's logging access operated?
The minister can operate it himself. He can also get any of the staff to operate it based on the exigency of the moment.
On how many occasions do we have third parties aside the minister himself operate that access?
Obviously, I'm unable to speak to that. That's why I said that a staff can do it based on the minister's supervision or and at the end of the day, based on the exigencies that come, any person could do it based on the minister's instruction. It doesn't matter even if 10 people are doing it. What is most important is that at the end of the day, whoever did it, was it for the purposes of serving the protocol? Yes. Was it abuse? If it was abuse, was the person aware? Did the person take money? These are some of the relevant questions that we should also add in addition to the questions that you are asking. Because if Kwesi Kwarteng was the one who was even using the minister's assets, and you brought a list, how is Kwesi Kwarteng able to know that the list that you brought, maybe person A or person B paid money, or you unknowingly probably have just been used as a go boy? It's also even possible that you yourself who brought the list might have taken money.
But Kwesi, you seem to be dealing with the possibilities. I'm asking about the specificity.
So the possibilities are coming in because of the.
I'm asking if has the minister ever designated someone to do that? At least that will give us a clue to identify who may have done this if it's not the minister.
No, I thought I'd answered that, and my answers are also born from the fact that I mean, you guys went into a hasty conclusion and generalization and placed a judgment and wanted to force your judgment on the rest of the Ghanaians. But you see, the point is that, back to your question, yes, the minister, I mean, gives access or gives his access to people. That is not, is not news. It's been happening that at every point, based on, I mean, the exigencies of the moment, the minister can say that particular thing. I mean, this is my access. These are the list of protocols you're supposed to enter.
And who then bears responsibility if anything goes wrong?
Obviously, in the entire placement process, at the end of the day, it is the Minister for Education who bears the ultimate responsibility for everything. And that we've never run away from it. It was the more reason why when even Manasseh brought his piece, we came out to express our gratitude to him and even confirm that we're going to use his piece, study it, and then use to strengthen our system. At no point has the ministry or the minister ever run away from that. But that should be separated, and there should be a deliberate separation between taking ultimate responsibility of all the loopholes, all the challenges within the placement system, and then indicting the minister because we felt something went wrong. These are very two different things. I mean, I'm not sure if today investigation proves that even if, let's say, the officer who used the minister's access probably took money, it is the minister that is going to face prosecution. Definitely not. It will have to be that officer. Why are we not allowing relevant state institutions to investigate? And then we feel that we can be, how do you call it? We can be prosecutors. We can be judges at the same time. And at no point should anybody question the judgment that we want to place on the people's mind.
Kwesi, I'll allow Manasseh and Adam Senano to join the conversation shortly, but one more hypothetical situation. If you have a bank account, which I believe you have, and you give me your access to withdraw money, I mean, in the perception of the bank itself, without knowing who is behind the machine doing the withdrawals, will the money be credited in your name?
You see, the facts with this matter is very clear, but you try to borrow new facts so that the analogy that you are trying to advance will make sense. You see, within the context of the conversation that we are having, it will not make sense for you to conclude that because my access was used by you, anything that was done, I should bear responsibility for it to the extent of indicting me. And especially within the context that the whole access is not restricted necessarily to the Ministry of Education. It's used to serve the general public. I'm not sure the staff of the Ministry of Education, everybody, every year, all of them have ones that are entering the secondary or senior high schools. We take the list from the general public. We take the list from ordinary Ghanaians. We take the list based on the exigencies of the moment. Within that process, there is a possibility that even the person using the minister's access has been probably turned into a guru boy. Why are we not looking at that? There's also that possibility that even indeed that person should have, probably has compromised himself. Investigations will bring it out, and such person will be dealt with the law. But to try and use this as a base to indict and tarnish the image of the Minister for Education is so unfortunate. And nobody expects a reputable institution like JFM to do that, especially when we have kept on many grounds explain the context within which there could be that possibility. All these that we are doing are based on insinuations and assumptions.
Yeah, but I guess you're shifting the goalpost now. You were, first of all, acknowledging that this is a report by the Fourth Estate. Of course, so let me bring in Manasseh now.
Before you go,
because we're not going, I just wanted you to get that reaction, and then I'll get your thoughts. Yes,
I'm shifting goalpost. Okay. I'm surprised.
Right. Kwesi, if you could just land on that point for me, Kwesi. Yes, Kwesi, I'm with you.
No, I'm saying that you said I'm shifting goalposts. I am surprised because at no point have any of us denied that the minister's access could be abused and misused, especially within the context that the general public who submits the list may have been exploited or compromised. But I'm saying that it will be so unfair, so simplistic, unsubstantiated to say that because granted that even if the report in the first place, I said it's a draft report, let's even say without even admitting that it's a final report. It will be so upset to conclude that because, the minister's access was used, then one can make an absolute judgment that the minister is implicated, and for that
Yeah,
matter,
we haven't said that in our report.
So that was
I don't know if
initially
that's
considered.
what you found with the fourth estate. So let me ask.
No,
let me
that's
ask
not
Manasseh
the
if that's the case.
This is to you. Manasseh have never said that. Manasseh have never said that.
We've never said that either. So we're talking about the login access, and you can check that at myjoyonline.com. Of course, we can all check that right away. So Kwesi, just hold on for me. Given how sensitive this matter is, let's bring in Manasseh as well. Manasseh, what are we learning much more about this?
Well, I think there are interesting revelations here. The first one being that the report is a draft report. This issue of the report came out last week after we did the story, and I have been with Mr. Kwatin on a number of platforms, and he mentioned that they have received the report and they are working to implement its findings. For the first time, we managed to get a copy of the report, and he's now telling us that it is draft report was presented to the ministry, and what it will take to make the report final, because we have seen the signatures of those who did it. We have seen their recommendations, and there is nothing in that report that indicates that it is draft. Can he point to us what in that report makes it draft?
If you,
the second issue,
if you want to be turned into the spokesperson of the ministry, you can add that job.
Kwesi, I'll allow you to respond to some of the points he's raising. I'll give you that time. I'll give you the time. Yes, Manasseh.
I am a journalist. I cannot speak for the ministry, and I'm just asking questions.
Right.
Someone is disputing the status of the report, so it is only fair that he clarifies why he thinks it is draft and what will make it a final report. And when this draft report was submitted to the ministry, because we started talking about this last week, and he confirmed that the report had been done and submitted to the ministry. So for the first time, he's saying it is draft. It is only fair that he gives clarity. The second point is, I was on UTV last week, and he called into the show, and in trying to dispute a claim made by Professor Pokwa Mankwa, he told us when Professor Pokwa Mankwa made the first placement, the date, the time where the candidate was placed, and when he made the last placement. Today, Mr. Kwatin is telling the whole world again that it is only the IT specialist or the consultant who is able to have access to the back end and know what is happening. So the second question I would want to know from him before we proceed is, how did he have access to what Prof did at the back end, but full access to category A, just like the minister, couldn't have known what the minister posted? And this question is important because if you read the report, that they couldn't give certain information access to the committee investigating because after 6 months, the system had to be archived, so they couldn't have access to that. So if a committee that was set up in 2022, June, couldn't have access to certain information to check some of these placements, but in 2023, Mr. Kwatin is able to tell us exact details of what Professor Pokwa Mankwa did at the back end. How is he able to do that? Because we know he doesn't have access, but Professor Pokwa Mankwa, who also had access just like the minister, cannot do that because he's telling us only the builders of the platform or the software or whatever it is could have access. I am very interested in knowing how this happened.
Okay. Adam Senano, I'll come to you shortly. Let's listen to Kwesi Kwarteng on this. Kwesi, so you have some of the questions coming up. Yes.
Again, I am happy Manasa is bringing out all these questions. And of course, one, it shows the lack of understanding, for lack of a better word, in the process or in the placement process. Yes, the ministry was able to produce the placement summary of Professor Pokwamankwa because right after the placement was done, we printed the entire placement summary. So we have the details of who plays A, who plays B, to where and to which school. That information existed even earlier before the committee was formed. So it is not as though, I mean, we just had that information in recent times. And when the committee wanted some details from the, from the consultant declined. I mean, that is the clarification there. That we had that information way earlier, right after the placement process. And like we rightly indicated, the consultant, based on the draft document, had indicated to the committee that after 6 months, the details were archived. So you are comparing 6 months to right after the placement when we retrieved that information. So they are very different, how do you call it? They are very different contexts.
Yes, but he's also raising a question on your, decision to question the status of the report itself
on the issue of whether or not it's a draft. But at no point have I said on any media platform that I have a final, or the ministry has a final, report. I said the report is ready. I'm not sure anybody has questioned me whether or not it's a final or draft report. I have never given a description about the report. But beyond that, what is the bone of contention, whether draft or final? What is most important thing is that through what Manasseh is saying based on the draft report, or even let's even give Manasseh the benefit of the based on the final report, an anomaly has happened. And the ministry is saying that it is a possibility. The ministry cannot make the final determination. At the end of the day, it rests on the relevant institutions, the police, the CID, to make a final determination and see that A money was paid here, B money was paid here. But the thrust of our argument as a ministry is that it will not suffice. It is so simplistic. It cannot be sustained to connect the dots and then try to point hands at the Minister for Education, just on the basis that somebody feels his assets was used. That's all what we are saying.
Adam Senano, you're also on. I'll come to Manasseh shortly. But looking at the responses that we're getting from the Education Ministry, you have some concerns?
Yes, I have major concerns. I am struggling to understand Mr. Kwarteng's position on this matter when he suggests that the minister is not responsible. In many of the systems that I have in my office or the boards and other organizations I chair, you have levels of security intentionally positioned because there's a level of responsibility that you are giving to a particular officer. And it is the responsibility, the understanding is that person will ensure that the system is secured, the activities under that system that are tied to his name are done in such a manner that the value that is expected, the information that is supposed to be protected is done. Now, there is absolutely no way I or anybody for that matter who is thinking through this can excuse the minister by virtue of the fact that he assigns people. In fact, I feel offended that Mr. Kwarteng should suggest casually that anybody could be giving the minister's account to assign, allocate, or take whatever actions. It seems to me that we are trivializing a very important aspect of the responsibility of public office holders and suggesting that we cannot hold that individual responsible, then that defeats the whole purpose of putting in place such systems and assigning levels of security and responsibility. So I'm not quite sure what exactly he's trying to communicate. As far as I'm concerned, the minister is responsible for anything that happened with that account. And I would have expected that the minute this was brought to his attention, additional effort should have been done by himself and whoever is in that office to identify who misapplied that account, what actions were taken, and brought those people by himself or whichever committee who set up to the point where all of us can say that, look, this is somebody who has integrity and is acting to make sure that he's protected. Not to just leave it and say he bears no responsibility and it is simplistic to draw that conclusion. There's nothing simplistic about this. I don't understand what Mr. Kwating is saying, and unless there's an angle, I cannot grasp.
How about a suggestion that looking at how cumbersome the process is, obviously the minister could not have been in charge of all the clearance, looking at the numbers involved and the exigencies of the time?
It does not change the fact that in designing the system, very clear in their minds that we've had challenges in the past. They intentionally made this exclusive to some individuals. What it then means that is those individuals ought to have taken the highest possible precautions to ensure that nothing untoward happens. The fact that the numbers are large does not take away that responsibility, because that is how the system was designed. And to that extent, therefore, if you recognize that you are going to have to bring other people on board, you needed to engage the consultants to it and bring those factors on board into the discussion, so that the system then takes that on board and says that, okay, the minister is going to assign ABC. They must also have their numbers, their barcodes, their so and so and so forth. And you have a limited number of people who are doing this and who you can track. That is how systems are designed. So really, it's just, I don't want to say my frustration when I hear public officers talk like this. That ought to have been brought to the table, system redesigned. Anybody, if it's 2 people or 3 people, each of them is giving coding, is giving the levels of security. And when they get into that system, we can track what they did. It is irresponsible for anybody to behave this way and come back and say, no, I'll allow state entities to investigate, and at the end of the day, then we decide who is culpable. No, the minister is culpable. That's my position.
Manasseh, let me take your thoughts, because you've not made any substantive point on this. You just raised questions. So I'll hear your points, and then we'll give it to Kwesi Kwating to respond.
Okay, thank you very much. If you follow me on the platforms I've been, anytime I was asked specifically that do I think it was the minister who took the money and did the placement, I often say that it is possible that somebody took the money and the minister may not know about it. I've always said that, and I still maintain that position. That is a possibility. But one thing I'm struggling to understand is that if somebody uses your name to commit fraud, you don't approve of the fraud, and you don't think the person acted well, and you are not taking any serious steps to trace that person, expose that person, then it becomes very difficult for us to say that you don't know what is happening. I'm saying this because Professor Opoku Amankwa, one of the 2 people, if you read that report, even whilst he was in office, okay, he told the committee that he could not absolve himself of any fraud. It is in the report, because there was a time he assigned his access to somebody. So there were issues of corruption. And what did he do? He decided to write to the BNI to come and investigate. For certain reasons, the BNI pulled out. The information we at the 4th Estate have is that some powers from above stopped that investigation. He wrote to the CID. The CID came. For whatever reason, the CID also pulled out. They didn't do the investigation. So on the part of Professor Opoku Amankwa, there is evidence that he seriously wanted something to be done. And he told the committee that it was possible that the fraud could have come from his access. And he took steps that is well documented. Let us come to the minister. I sat face to face with the minister to interview him. And the issue of these allegations of corruption and the action that were taken, the minister never mentioned to me that there was some investigation internally and that anything was done about it. This report we are talking about only came about because we at the Fourth Estate brought out this story. Somebody within the ministry leaked a letter, and then we followed up and got the report. It is curious to note that the minister who should have been telling us the efforts he himself had taken by citing this report was silent on it. And finally, one thing Mr. Kwati has never been able to say to any journalist who interviewed him was when this report was submitted to the ministry by the committee. I just want him to bring clarity to it. He's been speaking to this report, but skirting around this question. When did the committee finish its work? When was the report presented? What did the minister do specifically when it is in the report alleging that for a fraudulent activity? If it wasn't him, if he didn't know about it, what did he do about this? Since he got the report, and since they have a printout of who placed who and not placed, have they been able to trace this particular placement and find out who brought this name and got it placed through the minister? I am not saying that the minister took money. It is possible he didn't know about it. The placement too, and if a candidate is placed in his name, they should be able to know through whom that placement came from, because I'm told that the system is designed in such a way that even from the schools, when they are bringing the list, their protocol list, there is a column for remarks that they have to state that this protocol is coming from the headmaster. This protocol is coming from the chief of the community. This protocol is coming from the Old Students Association president. This protocol is coming from the PTA chairman, so that if there's anything wrong with that protocol, they will be able to trace it to the person. Are we saying that as far as the minister is concerned, if somebody perpetuates fraud in his name, using his login access, he is unable to tell us who did that? This issue of let the security agencies come to investigate, there are some issues, and from UTV, and he telling us that everything has been printed. They have it, and they should be able to perhaps know who did it and hand that person over to the police. But he is not able to tell us when they got this report and what they have done about these specific allegations that point to the minister. And so if you keep quiet and then you don't seem to be fighting hard to clear your name, then you give people room to worry. That is my point. So I would want him to tell us when this report was presented to the ministry and what they have done to trace who placed these names in the minister's account or through his access.
Okay, Kwesi.
I'm not sure Manasseh is the one who is intervening us.
Well, I mean, you need to be fair. You need to be, Kwesi, you need to be fair to him at this moment.
No,
you granted him audience when he brought out these
other
findings.
than that, I should have the liberty to also ask questions and probably to turn into questions.
That you're not being fair. You granted him access when he came up with the concerns.
It should turn into a question seminar if Manasseh is the one who is not the one.
Kwesi Kwateng, let's be fair. Let's be fair.
Can I proceed?
Yeah. Yes. Let's be fair.
So I have indicated on this platform and this program that the report is a draft report, and I'm not sure when Manasseh met the Minister of Education, he was expecting the minister to preempt his questions and then answer questions that he himself has not even asked. I'm sure the same Manasseh probably would have also been singing a different chorus, that the minister is giving answers to questions that he has not even asked. So when it became necessary that probably the discussion of the report has become quite dominant for us to discuss, I'm sure we are discussing it. Again, Manasseh speaks about the powers that be. You see, in all his analogy, let me tell you what Manasseh is trying to do. Today, let me be blunt here. In research, right, when you conduct a research, you leave the conclusion or whatever your findings for people to make their final determination. A lot of times you even make your conclusion, and based on that, people are able to question your methodology, critique your research. When they identify a gap, when there is a lacuna, based on that, they are able to improve on their research and bring in new ideas. It's also, I'm not a journalist, but it also applies to journalism. In journalism, after you have done all your investigative piece and maybe arrive at your judgment, you don't force your judgment on people and then try to...
Yeah, but that's the point I keep repeating. There's no conclusion on this matter.
No, there has been a conclusion. And you see, if we see the trajectory of his presentation, directly or indirectly or subtly, it's just to, get that big guy within the story and make it look like...
No, but the point is, you've not disputed the fact that indeed the minister's access was used. You've never disputed that on this platform.
I have not disputed the fact, but
precisely. So it's fair to report that the education minister's access was used. As to whether or not it was the education minister himself or otherwise, I guess that's where the question is going to now. Let me even help your case. Let me even help your case. Let's even admit, for the purpose of this discussion, that it was even the minister himself who, did that placement. That placement that is in question. How is a minister able to know that whoever individual that brought the access or that brought that placement request probably has been compromised or took A amount or B amount? You see, we deliberately want to pretend as though the fact that the access was abused, it means that maybe the minister has knowledge of it. No, but I guess this is not just about the minister. This is about the system. We've seen individuals in that tape who were on record, of course, accepting favors or bribes, if you want to call them as such, just to compromise the system. So if the attack is not on the minister, which I believe clearly the investigative piece is pointing to, it would then be focused on the individuals, the corporates, the people who are taking the money to compromise the system. Why not go after them? Why not put their names out? These are the concerns that are coming up, and not necessarily the minister.
We are still missing the point here. You have a draft report that we are speaking to. I am not sure the expectation is that the Minister for Education should make a final determination or decision on the draft report. Unless, of course, you have the very final report. Based on that final report, you say that person A or person B, person C has been indicted. Indeed, even if they are indicted, I am going to repeat the same point again. It is not the Minister for Education who make a determination on criminal prosecution or whatever is supposed to happen to them. At the end of the day, the ministry, we are ever open in terms of opening up for an investigation and then getting to the conclusion of this matter. If indeed a person A abused the minister's access, what is there to be afraid of?
The Ghana Education Service has its code of conduct that it can apply even as we wait for a criminal prosecution or investigation into the matters. You can apply that onto whichever officer may be found culpable. No?
You see, so why are you still jumping ahead of the gun? Especially when we are still discussing a draft document here. Unless, of course, you dispute that what I said probably is something that you are not taking. We are talking of a draft document. That I'm saying that
I don't think you are fair to all of us, because we pay you with our taxes, so you have to account to us. The minister is our employee, so he has to account to us. You are telling the whole world that this is a draft document. When you do this, you are impugning on the integrity of those who are holding on to that document. We are asking you, you are not. You keep on saying that I'm jumping into conclusions and all of that. If you don't know about investigative report, let me tell you that in investigative
Manasseh,
reporting,
I am not
you
here
can
for
draw
lectures.
conclusions.
Manasseh, I am
When
not.
you
Okay.
have
Manasseh,
evidence
So
to
I see
draw
where this is going.
Moderator, you have
Yeah.
to do. I am not here for lectures on investigative
Okay,
report.
I see where this is going, but
that there was,
okay. So, gentlemen,
there was corruption in the system.
Gentlemen, calm down. Let's
So
clear the
You
matter now.
are lecturing me
the
on
two of them
journalism,
spoke.
Okay.
and I'm telling you that there is a report was given to you.
Yes.
Interrupted.
Kwesi, I'm giving you the time to respond to the issues because clearly, in the end, the back stops with the minister and by extension your ministry. So that's why we are all asking questions so that you respond to them. Just calm down. Just calm down for me. I'm asking the question so that you clarify the matters. So we all have clarity. Why?
Yes, I am saying that.
So let's clear this off the table before we proceed. Why are you facing that difficulty in pointing out who may have used the minister's accounts, given the fact that he may not be himself, just to put out that name, and then sanctions may follow, and then we could have the investigative bodies pick up on that individual and find out what transpired?
Let me take it from this angle. If the Ministry of Education or the Minister for Education did not intend to even investigate its own internal process, and then based on that, use that investigative report or the recommendation to review his own, activities, the investigation shouldn't even in the first place have been instituted. That is one thing that you should know. So the fact that the Minister for Education or the Ministry of Education in the first place institutes or commissions investigation in their own internal activities demonstrates symbolically our resolve to address the loopholes within the placement system that we have. You have a report that is ready, and I am telling you that it's a draft report. For the purpose of this discussion, let's even agree it's a final report. Ultimately, if there have been culprits or people have to be held liable for misconducting themselves, what is the right thing to do? Definitely, this obviously amounts to a criminal activity. Is that not the case? Because that is a fraudulent activity. Fraudulent activity, I'm not sure you are expecting the Minister for Education to then make determinations on fraudulent activities. But what I can assure you is that when the final report is ready, the Minister for Education, the Ministry of Education will take all the relevant actions based on the recommendations.
And apologies,
Adam, I'll give you that. Yeah. I am again assuring you, can I land?
Yes, just go
ahead. The Ministry of Education will not shield any individual whatsoever who may be found culprit or who may be found liable in terms of having misconducted himself during the placement process.
Okay.
Of course, the Ministry of Education is not governed by robots. It's not governed by angels. It's not only angels that work in the ministry. There can be that possibility. But I'm saying that in the interest of natural justice, you cannot base on a draft report to indict person A or person B and then try to create a linkage that the minister has not acted responsibly. Indeed, if there was no quality assurance mechanism, how was the investigation able to even find out in the first place that person A or person B has misconducted himself? Yes, there is a problem, but the way to go about such a problem is not to deliberately shift blame and then attack the personality of somebody who has worked all these years to build his reputation as integrity. If the report is saying that somebody paid A or B money, obviously we can track it. We should be able to know that a person did the placement.
Kwesi, exactly what we've been doing all day long. Who did that? And once we get the identity of the person, the minister will be off the hook, I guess.
Can you come again?
Yes. So all we are trying to do now is to identify who used the minister's platform. And Adam, apologies, I'll come to you, Adam. But Kwesi, here's the point.
The person who used the minister's platform, obviously, if we are able to establish that such an activity or such a, such act was done. Definitely, the final.
So you are disputing. So you are disputing now that the minister's platform was used to place the student.
So I have never disputed that.
So you are not disputing that. So someone has done that. Who did that?
So I have never disputed that. I am saying that yes, it is possible. But within the context of the possibility, it is also possible that the person who did that might have even been turned into a guru boy without even knowing that whoever brought the list have taken money. There is also a possibility that the person who might have used the minister's assets, let's even say it's even the minister, there is also even that possibility that whoever used it might have also been compromised. And at the end of the day, when you have the final report, that is where final determination is able, can be made from it.
Manasseh has helped you with evidential value as to the individuals specifically who have taken money to do the postings. Now you have, just hold on for me. I'm just trying to connect the dots so you can respond. I'll give you that ample time. Now you have an investigative report you claim is not final, pointing out that the minister's access was used to do that transaction, which is in question here, correct? The next phase of what we're trying to identify now is who used that platform, the platform of the minister, to do that fraudulent transaction, because you haven't disputed the findings. Just hold on for me. I'll give you the opportunity.
Why don't you refer to the report?
Yeah, just hold on for me. You haven't till date, you haven't disputed the findings of the fourth estate. You are not either disputing what it is that the interim report is saying, that indeed the minister's account was used. So to connect that dot, we're identifying the individual and, the natural person in this case, who sat behind that computer, who placed that student in the category A school. So you have every piece of evidence helping you just to identify that individual. So if it's not the minister, as you're telling us now, who did that fraudulent transaction?
You see, I'll waive such a leading question, but granted that it was even the minister himself who did it, I am suggesting to you that your earlier conclusion is not sustainable on the basis that the minister, whoever he helped, it is possible that he didn't know that person might have taken money. Same applies to whoever also used the minister's assets.
Okay, so you are withholding the name. You are withholding the name of the individual.
Okay. At the end of the day, you have an internal investigative body or commission that was commissioned. Obviously, the report should be able to point out to whether person A or person B or person C. What now the report points out is the minister's assets. So it is only through thorough investigation that is where you're able to know that within that time, was it the minister who did himself or person A or person B who did himself? I'm not sure the expectation is that Kwesi Kwarteng should be able to manufacture or pinpoint names for you, that it is yourself or Manasseh or whoever individual that did it. Ultimately, we have not denied that there is a possibility that the minister's assets has been used. But I'm saying that even if it was used, whoever used it, whether the minister or his assignees, obviously, whether or not monies were paid, we will be able to track it through a proper investigation. Other than that, where do you arrive at?
Kwesi Kwarteng, your boss says he's not the one who took the money to do the fraudulent transaction. Now you're saying that someone may have been used as a pawn. You're not putting out the name of the person, and you are also not allowing the speculation to go on that it was indeed your boss who did that transaction. So how then do you help the people of Ghana? How then do you help the people of Ghana? If someone walks up to you to say, okay, so who did that transaction?
Listen to this.
Yeah.
Listen to this. Don't deliberately structure questions and then expect a very rigid answer. I am telling you that the draft report, based on the draft report that we have, that Manasseh is speaking to, is saying that it is the minister's assets, right?
Yes.
So it is only after forensic audit of the system, that is where you'll be able to know that with the minister's assets at that particular moment, which person approved or did that placement. You cannot just off-head determine that it is person A or person B. It doesn't work that way. I don't know why this has also become very
What time was the report completed?
The report, as indicated earlier, initially was supposed to be commissioned between July. The report was finished in terms of the draft report. I think was last 2 weeks. The minister had the draft report, and the assurance that came from the committee was that they are going to work on the final report and then make a presentation to him. So the confirmation that, or the brief that I have from my minister is that last 2 weeks, the draft document was presented to him. Of course, I said this on the even PM Express when I made the point that having spoken to the chief director, he re-emphasized the point that the draft or the report then was finalized and then has been presented to the minister. So it was within the same week. But in terms of specific date, I am unable to get it offered unless I confirm for you.
So so it's fair to conclude that 2 weeks ago, the Minister for Education knew that his passwords or access login details were used. He was
based on the draft report.
He was well aware of that.
Based on the draft report, based on the draft report, he knew everything within the draft report.
So he shouldn't be surprised if there's a report out there that his access has been used.
Is that the contention?
I'm asking a question.
No, I'm not sure that has been an issue. The issue is your deliberate commentary and analogy of trying to bring
you told me that your boss knew about this 2 weeks ago.
No, I mean, nobody has disputed that. Has anybody disputed that? What we are disputing as a Ministry of Education is the analogy and the commentary and the judgment that you want to create that based on the fact that his access was abused. I mean, it presupposes that he should be indicted. And I'm saying that that argument cannot be sustained.
I have not, at least I'm speaking from the position of what I've seen
if you want to be fair to yourself,
we have not said, and I have that report, I've read that story as well. We have not said anywhere in our reportage that the minister should be indicted. We just stated the facts as it is pointed out, which the minister himself has on his table, that yes, indeed, your access was used.
I'm surprised why, at the latter stage, you also don't want to accept responsibility for the remarks that you made when you were introducing the program. You spoke to the extent that you even said the minister has been indicted. And that was why I needed to. No, you can replay it.
I haven't said that. And I've told you on record that we haven't said the minister should be indicted. And you can check that. I mean, this is an online platform. I could raise that on the screens for all of us to see the headline, what's on myjoyonline.com right now.
Then there's no contention here, because at the end of the day, the ministry ourselves admit that within the protocol system, there can be loopholes and there are indeed some people who may take advantage and exploit people.
Okay.
Whether through the one that the Ministry of Education controls for the general public or through the one that the schools control. At no point have we ever run away from that.
Okay, I'm granting you your narrative that someone may have been used as a pawn. Will you assure the people of Ghana that, of course, the minister has read the report 2 weeks ago, the days are going by, this matter still lingers on? Are you giving the assurance to the people of Ghana that you would fish out the individual involved just to clear the name of the minister?
The Ministry of Education have retweeted many times, and we are going to repeat. At no point will we shield anybody. At no point will we protect anybody found culpable. It is even the more reason why the investigation was instituted. If we didn't want to implement the recommendations or the findings of the investigation, there wouldn't be even any point in putting up an investigative committee in the first place. So the assurance is that whoever is found culpable based on the report, whether from the Ministry of Education, whether from the schools, at the end of the day, we are more than ready to work with all relevant institutions to make sure that a resolution is met. Obviously, when it comes to these matters of fraud, you and I know is a matter that borders on criminality, and relevant institutions will be invited to take it from there. But of course, in concluding, at least we are now at the same level that the Minister for Education, the fact that his access was reduced, cannot be hanged. But what the Minister for Education, with our discussions with him, has again emphasized and reiterated is that we will take total responsibility and address whatever systemic challenge that is in the placement system, regardless or irrespective of where the challenge comes from. We are duty bound to address whatever, how do you call it, loopholes or systemic challenges that is within the placement system.
Because we've always been on the same page. No one is saying the minister did this directly. We're not also ruling out the possibility, and you agree that's why we're all looking for the individual who's at the center of this. You agree?
Ghanaians are watching, unless of course you want to stand a different.
we're all watching.
Well,
you know that so well.
Understand the narrative. Everybody understands the narrative that we're trying to push.
Right.
Except to say that whichever way is for the larger good. Just like Manasseh in his fourth estate did a very good job. The vital information that has been provided, like I reiterated earlier, will be used to strengthen the system. The challenge has been systemic. It is not a day-old or year-old challenge. It's been with us. We've done many interventions to strengthen it. Of course, so far as it's fraught with human interface, you may get one or two challenges, especially when the desire to get into those big institutions is there, and how lucrative those unscrupulous individuals who may also want to take advantage of the system may extend they may go. But the assurance is that wherever challenges that exist, when we are able to make a final determination as to the final report, yes, we will make a determination and then grab the whip if it's from the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
Except to say that the fact that you are able to trace access to somebody from the Ministry of Education may not necessarily suggest that such a person took money. You can come to the Ministry of Education or whoever had the access. The person will probably effect your changes. The person may not necessarily be aware that you have taken money yourself. So those possibilities, we should not also be hasting to run them down, because in the interest of natural justice, we have to be fair to every person and not necessarily run judgments on people at the end of the day.
Adam Senanu?
I'm sorry, Bless, but I have a difficulty aligning with you this afternoon. As far as I can understand, the minister stands indicted for allowing the abuse of his access. And I want to place that firmly on record. The minister stands indicted for allowing the abuse of his access. Under normal circumstances, the responsible thing that ought to have happened, if the minister identified that he was going to have to release access to more than one individual he could trust, would be either a redesign of the system, because it was done at great cost to allow certain security features, or else he should have had a system where you can tell who logged in at what time and traceability is ensured. So I will not go with the narrative that he does not stand indicted. He's indicted for allowing the abuse of access to his login, because there was at great expense that systems are designed, especially because this issue of placements and protocol has generated a lot of controversy in this country. So let's not shift the narrative. Any responsible public officer at that position who's been given this kind of security features to ensure that we have a limited access and can guarantee what is done within that space ought to take note. You don't allow the abuse of the access you've been given through a process that develop a system to guarantee that these things don't happen, and then come back and tell us that even it will require a forensic audit. The fact that somebody gathered the courage to use his access tells you a story. It is telling. How would anybody gather the courage to use his access to do something like this? That's on one score. And the fact that Mr. Kwating is telling us that without a forensic audit, we cannot establish who actually used the access to do this, tells us that there were no proper actions taken to protect, as it were, the interests of the citizens and ensuring that the right thing is done. And so at this point, please, let's not run away from the fact that the minister does stand indicted. Thank you.
Manasseh?
I am at pains when he tries to make it sound as though, and he actually said on Adom that sometimes we go about speaking on the issues as if we have an interest or a motive for doing what we do. I must say that we did this in the interest of the country. We presented facts, and I have at all material times, after understanding how the system works, said that it is possible that it could be done without it takes, or I get Joy FM to employ somebody. And then later on, Joy FM gets to know that I took money before bringing that person, or that person who was employed, that person who was employed through Manasseh's recommendation paid money to be employed. Joy FM will come directly to me. Manasseh, this is what we are getting. If you didn't take money, is it possible someone else introduced this guy to you for you to recommend it to us? So I don't think it is that difficult. I have understood the system. I have had explanation from insiders. And it is also telling that if you read the report, there are some persons who told the committee that previously they could log on and be able to trace. But this time, it is as if it was shrouded in secrecy. That's what the committee actually concluded, that it was shrouded in secrecy. And finally, this issue of the report, somebody is just drawing my attention to the fact that when Mr. Kwarteng spoke to Evans Mensah on PM Express, he mentioned a different timeline when this report was submitted. After here, we are going to verify and fact check. But even granted that the report was submitted 2 weeks ago, it is enough time to have known who did that, because he says he could tell us what time Professor Pokwa made the very first placement and when he made the very last placement. And there is something we should also be asking the ministry and also the consultants. The committee said they were not given access to some information to know who placed which candidate. And they claimed that within 6 months, the system is archived. If my memory serves me right, the placements were done in April last year. So I don't know at what point the committee was set up in June. So if they're able to tell us when they opened the system and when the 6 months elapsed, because it doesn't appear as though the timelines they are using to deny or used to deny the committee certain vital information are timelines that we should understand if we know what happened. And besides, if the ministry was minded to get to the bottom of this, you set up a committee made up of some of the topmost officials of your ministry. And then the IT person you employed who takes instructions from you. If you read the report, the committee made the request and the technicians didn't bother to even respond to some of them. And the committee said that they would have been able to resolve some of these issues that we are still here debating if they had access to that system. The ministry pays for that system. The system doesn't belong to the technician. So if the ministry wanted to do this report and the technician said no, and the ministry would fold its arms and say that, well, the committee didn't get it, and the technician we pay, he's keeping that information for us. Everything that is in that software is for the ministry. I struggle to find or understand how serious they are at getting to the bottom of this matter. And in the coming days, as you said, I think it is in the supreme interest of Dr. Yao Osei Educhun to produce who did what placement, because I can say that the office said, I mean, it's not fear mobile from a second in Jananka. And see, Dr. Yao Educhun, it's now I'm obedient a second in Jananka. One also in here, I'm no pure the second man. And Tia Bisasa wine and Ojananka. Thank you.
Anyway, but Manasseh, in all of this, I hope there's no personal fixation on the education minister? Because it's part of the concerns Kwesi Kwarteng has been raising.
I don't see what the personal fixation is about. Dr. Educhum is somebody, when you go and listen to the Banredo Memorial Lecture, you follow my Facebook, I have in the past praised him so highly. Whatever we went in to do didn't have anything. We started hearing about these allegations even before he got in here. So his name is mentioned, that his access has been used. They don't dispute that. So I struggle to see how somebody would say there is what? Personal fixation. This is somebody I admired, somebody I publicly praised, but when I'm doing my job as a journalist, if his name was not mentioned, even in the internal report. So are we saying that the committee is also fixated about Dr. Educhum? No. It is just that somebody has used his access. We are even not sure that he himself didn't use it, because we often say somebody, but the possibility that he may have used it. There's also the possibility that someone else used it. There's also the possibility that he didn't know somebody took the money. In this case, they have all the details, and he knows who he gave his access to.
All right.
So they are in a better position to tell us. If not Dr. Educhum, like you asked, then who? And if that happens and the person is brought up and handed over to the security agency that he used my name to do ABC, I didn't know about it, so let the law deal with him. I don't think any rational human being would still want to associate the minister with this. But until they come out to tell us something, their own committee is saying that the system was shrouded in secrecy. So you cannot blame people who are speculating and still wondering who may have done this.
Okay. Manasseh, thank you. Adam Senanu, thank you. Let me give the final minutes to you, Kwesi Kwarteng, if you have anything to say. We have a very limited time, so you do that for us very briefly.
It looks like Manasseh keeps confusing the internal report with some hearsays that he had from people he calls persons within the ministry. And on one side, the committee report said this. On the other side, they said that. On one side, he said the committee was denied information on relevant information. So how was the same committee able to make findings that at the end of the day, they were able to even point accusing fingers at the minister's access? You get the inconsistency in Manasseh's submission. But for me, I quickly want to tackle on the bit about the other gentleman, where he was speaking of the minister supposed to be indicted. I will excuse him because it looks like all the explanation that I gave, even Manasseh even affirmed the possibilities. He still talks about indictment, which for me is a stronger word, is a stronger word used in criminal, and I'm not sure it will suffice here. But what is most important is that ultimately, the Ministry of Education do not take whatever issues that has come up, especially emanating from Manasseh's, his coming from Manasseh's investigative piece lightly at all. What the Ministry of Education, again, has reiterated is that even before Manasseh brought his investigative piece, we were working on it. It is the more reason why we commissioned such a committee, so that, with the committee's finding, just like any other institution, we should be able to rely on that and review our own internal mechanisms and how we do our things. Manasseh's own is just a plus or an add-up. We are still going to work with that, his investigative piece. Again, whatever internal arrangement or internal mechanism that we have, being it investigation, we will use the recommendation, the final recommendation that will come out to strengthen our system. The assurance is also that we are, again, working with all relevant state institutions to make sure that whatever loopholes within the system, we should be able to address it. But again, what is most important that I have to highlight before I conclude is also a caution to parents. It's just like bribery. If one person does not pay, it's very difficult for the other person to accept. So we caution parents to that whilst we are preparing for the 2023 placement to, there's also that possibility that people may again want to abuse the system, and then they should be cautioned against paying monies to any individuals. If there are any genuine issues, they can walk to their institution, respective institutions, they can walk to the resolution centers, and they can walk to the Ministry of Education or Ghana Education Service, and whatever issues will be addressed. But in the end, if we find any person from the ministry or wherever culpable, such a person will be dealt with according to law.
All right, gentlemen, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on The Pulse, Manasseh Azuri. Also to you, Kwesi Kwating and Adam Senan. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us.